3 years ago, I set out to construct the most powerful nootropic stack for focus, motivation, and sheer cognitive horsepower. I logged hundreds of hours, sampled endless amounts of cognitive performance chemicals, and ran beta tests with soldiers from the United States Army. And after massive experimentation and ruthless trial and error, my work had finally paid off. I found what I was looking for.
All right, what's up, everybody? Out here in the middle of nowhere. Actually, I'm in an industrial park with lots of grass and places to sit and hang. And I quickly want to talk about a perfect place for this. A lot of people ask me about what I think about pot, marijuana, THC, and or cannabinoids in general, and or CBD oil, and I think very highly of all of it, basically. I don't smoke pot because I can't think the way that I want to think if I smoke pot, but I have taken CBD oil for inflammation, pain, these sorts of things, a few other things, just to sort of calm me down, mostly to calm me down and get me in a good place where I feel functional and calm, and I can edge out a lot of anxiety with sublingual CBD oil. Just dropping a few drops under my tongue, about 6 drops. I forget the concentration and quantity, so I know that's not that helpful. So CBD oil, I think, is not only harmless but great in a variety of ways. For pain, particularly, I think for calming the nervous system down. It's highly anti-inflammatory. So I think it's great. I think that I've also gotten relief from a reflux condition too. Not regular acid reflux, it's called silent reflux, and I think it was, I'm not sure, it could have been the potent anti-inflammatory effects I had on my intestines, my larynx, which is where the reflux shoots up to. That's why it's different than regular acid reflux. It doesn't burn. It's called silent reflux, or LPR, which stands for laryngo in the larynx area, pharyngeal reflux. And so it was particularly useful for that. But what I think the best use of either smokable or edible marijuana is, that's like a specific question folks keep asking me, and I think that I think a couple things. Smoking a good amount of pot or eating like a pot cookie or something is, for me, it's always a bad experience throughout most of the time that it's affecting my brain. Because I can't read, my working memory's terrible. I basically just have to, I like to think and use my brain and be verbally fluent, and so it's hard for me not to do that. I can't even sit down and game if I were to smoke or eat a pot brownie or cookie or something. But I can certainly say that after the profoundly acute effects wear off, 2, 3 hours, 4 hours, I am left in the ensuing 1 to 3 days, basically to put it simply, a lot more creativity, because I think I've inhibited a lot of brain activity that typically would inhibit creativity via the marijuana. And I feel like I have done each time that I have done that, I ended up I end up kind of doing an audit of the things that I'm doing that I shouldn't do. And I end up out of that experience not doing them anymore, because I realize, well, this is stupid. I shouldn't be doing this. That's one good use for it. It's like sort of terrible while it's doing its thing, but then in the ensuing couple of days you really get some insight because your brain's working differently. You've inhibited that excessive logic and excessive processing stuff that inhibits your creativity. And I think for me, the best application, the best practical application of marijuana in general, in edible and or smokable form, but would be in edible form in a brownie or a cookie, in basically microdoses. You know how people talk about microdosing LSD and that being pretty useful for productivity and creativity, things of this nature. I find that the extremely low dose, like not far less than a quarter of a pot cookie, like probably 1/16 of a quarter of a pot cookie. So take a regular sized cookie or something, and then take a quarter of it, and then cut off 1/16 of that quarter. That's what I mean by microdose. And I don't really get much of an acute effect. My working memory and verbal fluency stays relatively the same, but I do feel profoundly calmer and profoundly less stressed and happier. That is, I think, the best use of it. You know, you're sitting there in a moment where you're like, I can't. You're trying to meditate and that's not working. You're just like, fuck, I need to calm down. What the hell's going on? You know, your nervous system, what's going on is your nervous system's probably just taxed, and it's now gone rogue and is stressing you out. And people always say, well, I'm not stressed. I don't respond well. I mean, I respond fine to things that are stressful. Yeah, but the nervous system kind of takes on a life of its own sometimes. When that happens, one of the best things to do would be very, very low dose marijuana. Very low dose. I mean, like I said, 1/16 of a quarter of a pot cookie. You know, people talk about marijuana and being being an anxiolytic, but then they smoke like a joint and they're paranoid and anxious and have mild panic attacks for 3 hours. That's because you smoked a joint. Stop doing that. I would never smoke a joint again in my life, ever. No reason for that. It's way too much. Now, if I was smoking every day for the past 10 years, sure, a joint wouldn't be that bad. But I mean, I don't do that. I like to use my brain and think. Very small dose, micro dose of a pot cookie. I'd rather do that than smoke it is the best for me, for calming me down the sort of automatic stress happening in the background of my nervous system, and putting me in a place where I'm a lot happier and just like, yeah, my brain feels good. That would be that's my thoughts on marijuana. Do I think like it should be legal for recreational use? Yeah, I think it should be legal for recreational use. But with limitations, kind of like alcohol does, because some people will not be able to control. Some people make bad decisions on how much they might smoke in a particular situation. That may lead to them doing something. Like, people can get too fucking stoned to drive a car. I mean, it can happen, and certainly to perform work. I mean, there's no question about that. And so, within reasonable limitations, yeah. But I'm saying it should be recreationally legal. Absolutely, much more available for medicinal purposes. No question about that. It's terrible how limiting it is. And it's terrible how people have to go legally buy pot to help them to contend with some sort of disease state that pot alleviates quickly. And that's my position on it.